My name is Victoria Harper. I was 31 when my father pointed toward the door and ordered me out of the home and company I had spent years quietly keeping alive. It happened during an emergency meeting at Harper Agricultural Systems, our family's greenhouse equipment business. A supplier had frozen our account. Employees were demanding unpaid overtime, and my younger sister's university had issued a final tuition warning. I had prepared a rescue plan, but before I could present it, my father slammed my report onto the table. "All you do is take," he yelled in front of my mother, siblings, and 6 employees. "You never gave this family anything. If you have any pride left, get out of my company and my house." No one defended me, not even the people whose insurance, loans, taxes, and tuition I had been paying from my own account. I closed my laptop, removed my badge, and placed both on the table. "All right," I said. That night, I packed one suitcase, canceled every automatic payment attached to my name, and left without arguing. 2 months later, my sister called in tears. "Why did the tuition payment stop?" I remembered my father's accusation and texted back, "I thought I never gave this family anything." That message exposed a secret none of them were ready to face. By the time the truth surfaced, the business, our reputation, and my father's authority were already collapsing. Before I tell you what happened after I walked away, tell me what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. I want to see how far Victoria's story travels. For almost 9 years, I worked as procurement and compliance manager for my father's company in Milwaukee. Harper Agricultural Systems supplied irrigation controls, heating units, ventilation equipment, and automated shade systems to commercial greenhouses across Wisconsin and northern Illinois. My father, Douglas Harper, had founded the company when I was young and constantly reminded us that his business paid for our home, vacations, and education. What he never admitted was how much of its survival depended on work he refused to value. I negotiated vendor extensions, reviewed contracts, corrected invoices, renewed licenses, tracked employee certifications, and stopped my father from signing agreements containing penalties he had not read. At home, I carried another invisible workload. My mother, Elaine, avoided conflict and passed practical responsibilities to me. My older brother Mason held the title of sales director, but spent more time entertaining clients than collecting overdue accounts. My younger sister Chloe studied environmental engineering at a private university in Madison. My father proudly told people he paid Chloe's tuition. In reality, he had stopped transferring money 18 months earlier. My mother asked me to cover one semester temporarily, and I continued because Chloe was doing well and knew nothing about the arrangement. I also paid my mother's supplemental insurance, property tax installments, policies for 2 company vehicles, and several vendor repayment plans. Whenever the family faced a crisis, someone came to me privately, promised repayment, and forgot the promise once the danger passed. Nearly half my salary flowed back into the company or household. I documented every transfer because my work had taught me never to rely on memory where money was concerned. On the morning I was fired, I discovered Mason had promised a major greenhouse project at a price below cost. He had excluded freight surcharges, installation labor, and warranty reserves. Completing the contract could cost the company almost $200,000. Canceling it could trigger a lawsuit. I prepared 3 alternatives that could preserve both the client relationship and our cash flow. Before the meeting, however, Mason told our father that I was exaggerating the danger to undermine him. When I presented the overdue supplier invoices, my father brushed them aside. Mason accused me of frightening employees with imaginary numbers. My father believed him because Mason always said what he wanted to hear. Then came the accusation. I contributed nothing. I appreciated nothing. I existed only because he allowed it. His command to leave was not a momentary outburst. He repeated it slowly. "Take your files, take your attitude, do not return until you learn gratitude." I looked at my mother. She lowered her eyes. Mason looked satisfied. Chloe appeared frightened but remained silent. Their silence made the decision for me. I returned home, packed clothing, personal records, my laptop, and a wooden box containing my grandmother's letters. I left my keys on the counter. Then I canceled every payment that had never legally been mine. Chloe's tuition, my mother's insurance, property taxes, vehicle policies, vendor installments, and the payment on a credit line Mason had persuaded me to guarantee. I did not steal anything or sabotage a contract. I simply stopped financing people who had publicly declared that I gave them nothing. For the first week, no one called. My father told employees he had removed an ungrateful daughter who had become disruptive. Mason took my office and changed the title on the door. My mother told relatives I needed time to calm down. They expected me to return, apologize, restart the payments, and resume my old role. The first cracks appeared before the second week ended. An insurance payment failed, forcing 2 service vans off the road. Deliveries were delayed. The client Mason had underpriced demanded the schedule he had promised. Without my vendor relationships, replacement components cost 30% more. Then the county sent a late property tax notice. My mother searched my old desk for records that existed only in my private files. When she asked Mason for help, he said finances were not his department. By the end of the 3rd week, hourly employees were still waiting for part of their wages. My father blamed the bank, the suppliers, the workers, and eventually, me. He claimed I had deliberately left the company disorganized. The truth was simpler. The disorder had always existed. I had merely stopped standing in front of it. I rented a furnished apartment in Wauwatosa and spent several days sleeping longer than I had in years. The silence felt strange. I was used to waking before sunrise to check supplier messages, review balances, remind Chloe about deadlines, and schedule my mother's appointments. Without those duties, I kept reaching for my phone as though I had forgotten an emergency. During the 4th week, my mother sent the first message. "Your father is hurt by how you left. Call him before this becomes permanent." She said nothing about him firing and humiliating me. My departure, not his behavior, was presented as the injury. I did not respond. 2 days later, Mason called from an unfamiliar number. He opened with fake concern and then asked for the supplier management password. I reminded him that my credentials had been disabled when I was fired. He accused me of being difficult and warned that employees might lose their jobs because of my stubbornness. Then his voice changed. "People are starting to understand what you're really like." That was my first clue that my family had started a campaign against me. Over the next week, 2 aunts and a cousin contacted me with nearly identical messages. My mother was sick. Chloe could lose her education. The company was struggling. I needed to stop proving a point. One aunt wrote, "Whatever your father said, abandoning your family financially is cruel." I asked how she knew I had supported them financially. She never answered. My family had hidden my contributions for years. Now they revealed just enough to blame me for stopping them. Then Chloe called. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. The university had placed a hold on her account. Unless the balance was paid within 10 days, she could lose registration access and campus housing. "Why did the tuition payments stop?" she asked. There was no greeting and no question about where I was living. "Who told you I was paying?" I asked. After a long silence, she admitted our mother had shown her the bank records. My father had claimed for years that the company funded everything. I read Chloe the account number from which every payment had originated. Mine. She whispered that she had not known. I believed her, but ignorance did not obligate me to rescue her immediately. "I love you," I said, "but I will not keep paying while Dad tells people I contributed nothing." She asked what she was supposed to do. I told her to contact financial aid, request an emergency grant, apply for loans, and ask our parents to provide what they had promised. She accused me of making her suffer to punish our father. "Chloe, you called because the money stopped. You did not call when I was thrown out." She had no answer. Afterwards, she texted, "So you're really abandoning me?" I replied, "I thought I never gave this family anything." Someone must have read the message aloud because my phone began ringing immediately. My father ordered me to stop manipulating Chloe. My mother said Chloe was panicking. Mason called me vindictive. That night, I created a document listing every payment I had made during the previous 3 years. Chloe's tuition and housing exceeded $68,000. My mother's insurance and medical expenses totaled more than $14,000. Property taxes, commercial insurance, payroll advances, vendor installments, and emergency purchases added another $91,000. The credit line I had guaranteed for Mason still carried $36,000. Altogether, I had paid or assumed responsibility for more than $200,000. I attached statements, dates, and explanations, then sent the file to my parents, Mason and Chloe. Before anyone says I destroyed this family by leaving, read what I carried while you told me I gave nothing. My mother called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Mason said family members should not keep score. Chloe wrote, "I'm sorry, I truly didn't know." My father remained silent for 3 days. When he finally contacted me, he did not apologize. He threatened to sue me for mishandling company money. That threat might once have frightened me. Instead, I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to an attorney. Leaving the company did not erase what I knew. For nearly a decade, I had learned how businesses lost money through weak contracts, poor inventory control, duplicate purchases, expired certifications, and undocumented promises. My father called those skills administrative chores. Someone else recognized their value immediately. A former supplier, Naomi Brooks, contacted me after hearing I had left. Naomi managed regional accounts for a manufacturer of climate control sensors. She knew I had prevented costly mistakes my father never noticed. We met at a bakery, where she placed a folder in front of me. A hydroponic farming cooperative had accumulated almost $400,000 in unusable parts. They needed someone to determine what could be returned, resold, repurposed, or written off. They asked who could untangle this, Naomi said. I gave them your name. I accepted the project as an independent contractor. For 3 weeks, I worked inside the cooperative's warehouse, cataloging obsolete pumps, reviewing purchase agreements, and tracing inflated freight charges. I negotiated returns, arranged a bulk resale, and recovered tax credits they had never claimed. By the end of the project, I had helped them recover or avoid more than $180,000. They paid my full invoice without questioning it. The amount exceeded 3 months of my old salary. More importantly, their director thanked me publicly and called my work essential. Naomi encouraged me to create a consultancy specializing in inventory recovery, purchasing controls, and supplier risk reviews. I named it Northline Operations Consulting. The name did not include Harper. That felt like freedom. Naomi introduced me to a food storage company, a brewery expanding its packaging line, and a laboratory cabinet manufacturer. I created clear contracts, rates, deadlines, and reporting systems. Instead of handling emergencies without authority, I was paid for my judgment. Within 6 weeks, I had enough confirmed work to cover a year of expenses. I moved into a modest loft near Milwaukee's industrial district and bought a conference table, a reliable printer, and a framed photograph of my grandmother standing outside the grocery store she once owned. She had taught me that generosity without accountability becomes permission for exploitation. I had forgotten that lesson inside my father's house. My success made the rumors worse. Mason told relatives I had stolen clients from the family business. My father claimed I had used confidential records. Neither accusation was true, but the truth embarrassed him. If I had been useless, my departure should not have mattered. If I had stolen his success, he had to admit I possessed valuable expertise. He shifted between both stories depending on his audience. One afternoon, Chloe sent me a photograph of another tuition notice. I considered paying it anonymously. Naomi asked, would that solve her problem, or restore the system that created it? I knew the answer. Instead, I helped Chloe prepare an appeal to the university. I reviewed her financial aid forms and showed her how to document the loss of promised family support. She received an emergency grant, accepted a campus research job, and arranged a payment plan. For the first time, she took responsibility for her education. Meanwhile, the company's condition deteriorated. Mason's underpriced contract became a financial disaster. The client rejected a price increase, but my father continued the project to avoid embarrassment. The company borrowed against equipment to buy materials. Then Mason approved incompatible control modules without reading the revised specifications. Replacements required expensive expedited freight. Employees quit after another delayed payroll. Suppliers moved the company to prepaid status. My father borrowed against the family home without fully informing my mother. When she found out, their marriage began unraveling. She accused him of risking everything. He accused her of raising disloyal children. Mason blamed me for withholding vendor relationships. Chloe, after reading the complete record of my payments, asked why everyone had allowed me to carry so much. My father said I had volunteered. My mother admitted she had repeatedly asked for help. Mason claimed I enjoyed controlling the family. Chloe called him a liar and moved into shared housing near campus. My father's public reputation also began to collapse. He had always portrayed himself as a self-made provider. When relatives discovered I had funded Chloe's tuition and protected the company through repeated crises, several confronted him. Instead of admitting the truth, he stopped attending family gatherings. The man who had humiliated me publicly now avoided any room where someone might ask what I had actually contributed. I did not celebrate his embarrassment, but I no longer protected him from consequences he had earned. My uncle Grant Harper was the only relative who had not contacted me with accusations or demands. He had once worked as an accountant for the family company, but left after a serious dispute with my father. Nearly 3 months after my departure, Grant asked to meet at a public library. He arrived with a locked document case. "I need you to see this before Douglas destroys what remains," he said. Inside were loan agreements, ownership records, financial statements, and a signed amendment to my grandmother's trust. Grant explained that my grandmother had provided the company's original capital in exchange for a 22% ownership interest. When she died, that interest was supposed to be divided between my father and me because I had worked in the company throughout college and cared for her during her final illness. I had never been told. My father had pressured Grant, then acting as temporary trustee, to delay the transfer. Grant refused to sign a revised document eliminating my interest, and their relationship ended. The shares intended for me remained in a dormant trust account, while my income distributions had been redirected into the company under the claim that they were being reinvested for me. "How much?" I asked. Grant placed another report on the table. Over 9 years, my unpaid distributions should have totaled approximately $310,000. The money had funded equipment, renovations to the family home, and Mason's failed recreational vehicle business. The discovery changed everything. I had not merely donated my salary to support the family. I was an undisclosed owner whose profits had been used without consent. Grant also showed me emails in which my father discussed removing my interest entirely. In one, he wrote that Mason should inherit control because Victoria has no life outside the business and will continue working regardless of ownership. I read the sentence 3 times. My father had not overlooked my sacrifice. He had calculated that it made me easy to exploit. I hired a trust specialist and a business litigation attorney. They concluded I had a credible claim to ownership, past distributions, and access to the company's records. I could have filed immediately and accelerated the company's collapse. Part of me wanted my father to feel the powerlessness he had forced on me, but innocent employees still depended on the business. Instead, my attorneys sent a formal notice asserting my ownership, requesting complete records, and warning against unauthorized transfers. We offered mediation. I demanded legal recognition, transparency, repayment through a structured plan, and removal of my guarantee from Mason's credit line. My father denied the trust amendment, accused Grant of fabricating documents, and claimed my family payments were voluntary gifts. He also alleged that Northline competed unfairly with his company. His defense revealed something worse. Harper Agricultural Systems was close to insolvency. Tax deposits had been delayed. Customer advances had funded unrelated expenses. Mason's reports overstated revenue. My father had also taken a large personal distribution during the same month he stopped paying Chloe's tuition. He had not lacked money. He had chosen other priorities while allowing me to absorb the consequences. My mother called in tears after learning about the trust. She claimed she had never known I owned part of the business. Then she admitted my father had once asked her to sign a statement saying my grandmother intended everything to pass to him. She refused, but never told me. "I was trying to keep the family together," she said. In our family, that phrase had always meant protecting the person causing the damage. Mason called me greedy and accused me of stealing our father's work. "You cannot inherit something by pretending every other contributor never existed," I told him. Chloe asked to meet. She apologized for calling only when her tuition stopped and admitted she had accepted our father's story because it made her life easier. She did not ask for money. I offered to cover the remaining tuition after her grant and wages, but only through a written agreement. Payments would go directly to the university, and our parents could not claim credit. Chloe agreed. Helping her under clear conditions did not feel like surrender. It felt like choosing generosity instead of being forced into it. 3 days before mediation, the bank issued a default notice on the company's primary loan. Reality had arrived with numbers my father could not shout away. By the mediation date, the company had lost access to its administrative building because of unpaid rent. We met inside the warehouse, surrounded by boxed motors, valves, and control panels pledged as collateral. My father sat with his attorney. My mother sat several feet away. Mason paced near the loading dock. Chloe attended because she was tired of decisions being made in her name. Grant joined my legal team. My father opened the meeting as though he were offering mercy. "You have made your point. Withdraw the claim, return to work, and we can put this behind us." I asked whether he planned to apologize for firing me publicly, hiding my ownership, using my distributions, and threatening me. "I will not apologize for trying to save what I built," he replied. The mediator explained that a court case could lead to an injunction, forensic accounting, and investigation of the company's loan representations. Mason interrupted, claiming the trust documents were irrelevant. Chloe asked whether the $68,000 I had paid for her education was irrelevant too. Mason told her to stay out of business matters. For the first time, my mother raised her voice at him. "She is part of this family, and so is Victoria. Your father acted as though only you mattered." Then she placed an envelope on the table containing loan documents bearing her signature. She said she had not knowingly signed 2 of them because my father had handed her only the signature pages. The allegation widened the crisis. During a break, Mason approached me. "The company will die if you keep pushing. The company is dying because leadership hid losses, misused money, and rewarded appearance over competence," I said. I still understood that employees depended on the business, which was why my proposal included a path forward. I would suspend my demand for immediate repayment. In exchange, the company would recognize my ownership, remove my guarantee from Mason's debt, appoint an independent restructuring officer, sell non-essential assets, provide complete records to the bank, and prioritize unpaid employee wages. My father would step down as managing director. Mason would lose his executive title and could remain only as a supervised salesperson. My past distributions would be repaid over time if the company survived. My father laughed bitterly. "So this is your revenge? You want my chair." "I do not want your chair. I want you to stop setting everyone else on fire so you can remain seated." His only alternative was for me to return, restore vendor credit, restart family payments, and allow him to keep control. I refused. He stood so quickly that the table shook. "After everything I gave you, you would humiliate me in my own company? You gave me responsibility without authority. blame without recognition, and debt without consent. Then you said I never gave this family anything. I believed you enough to stop. Chloe cried. But she did not ask me to back down. Mason unexpectedly told our father to accept the proposal. His support was partly self-protection, but it was the first time he acknowledged reality. My father turned to my mother. "Sign it, Douglas," she said. "I will not lose the house so you can keep pretending." He called us traitors and listed every sacrifice he had made to build the company. Some were real, but sacrifice did not give him permanent ownership of everyone else's labor. 1 hour later, he signed. Within 2 weeks, the company sold luxury vehicles, trade show equipment, and excess inventory. The family home was listed because too much business debt was attached to it. My father resigned from the local Growers Association after members learned customer deposits had covered unrelated expenses. His reputation disappeared once people saw the records. He was later hospitalized with stress-related chest pain and uncontrolled blood pressure. I visited once, stayed 20 minutes, and left when he blamed me for the house sale. Consequences did not transform him overnight. That taught me something important. Boundaries are not tools for forcing another person to change. They are protection that remains necessary even when that person refuses to change. Harper Agricultural Systems did not survive in its original form. A smaller competitor purchased the service division, retained 14 employees, honored active maintenance agreements, and acquired selected inventory. The sale paid overdue wages and reduced part of the secured debt. It did not restore my father's fortune. The family home was sold. My parents moved into separate apartments, and my mother eventually filed for legal separation after discovering the full extent of the hidden borrowing. She found part-time administrative work at a medical clinic and began counseling. She also stopped carrying messages between my father and me. For the first time, she was learning that peace maintained through silence is not peace. Mason lost his title, company vehicle, and assumption that he would inherit a successful business. The purchasing company hired him temporarily, but dismissed him after he submitted inaccurate expenses. Eventually, he accepted a sales job with strict reporting systems and no family protection. Months later, he called and admitted he had allowed me to solve problems he refused to understand. He did not ask for money or a recommendation. He simply apologized. I accepted the apology without pretending everything was repaired. Accountability can open a door, but it does not erase the room behind it. Chloe stayed at university. She reduced expenses, continued working in the research laboratory, and earned a scholarship for her final year. I paid the agreed portion of her tuition directly to the university. She sent grades and payment records without being asked. More importantly, she defended me when our father continued rewriting the story. During a family gathering, he said his children had abandoned him when the company struggled. Chloe answered, "Victoria did not abandon us. We abandoned her while she was standing in the same room." My father never regained his former status. He occasionally consulted for equipment dealers, but he could no longer command a company or household through intimidation. Some people might call that my revenge. He lost the business, the house, his reputation, and the unquestioned loyalty of his family. But I did not create those losses. They were the delayed cost of decisions hidden beneath my labor. My departure did not destroy a stable family. It removed the support concealing how unstable everything already was. Northline Operations Consulting continued growing. The hydroponic cooperative referred me to national suppliers. I hired an analyst and a contract specialist. Naomi became a strategic partner on several projects, though we documented every agreement clearly. Healthy relationships do not fear clarity. Within 18 months, Northline signed a multi-state contract worth more than I had earned during several years at my father's company. At the kickoff meeting, the client introduced me as an expert in recovering value from broken systems. That description fit more than my career. I also received a settlement from remaining company assets and trust accounts. It was less than the distributions I should have received, but it recognized my ownership and removed every guarantee connected to Mason or the old business. I used part of the money to expand Northline, create an emergency fund, and establish a scholarship in my grandmother's name for students studying agricultural technology and supply chain management. The scholarship did not carry my father's company logo. It existed because my grandmother believed work should create opportunity, not control. My relationship with my father remained limited. I responded when his communication was respectful. When he blamed, threatened, or demanded, I ended the conversation. Nearly 2 years after he expelled me, we met at my mother's request. Without his office, title, and employees, he looked smaller. He said he had been under enormous pressure during our final meeting. I told him pressure could explain anger, but it could not excuse years of exploitation. He claimed he had always expected me to inherit part of the business eventually. I reminded him of the email saying Mason should inherit because I would continue working without ownership. For once, he did not deny the evidence. "I thought you would never leave," he said. That was the closest he came to admitting the truth. He had mistaken loyalty for permanent permission. "I almost didn't leave," I replied. "That is why I had to." He asked whether I could forgive him. I told him forgiveness and access were not the same. I did not want to carry anger forever, but I would never again give him control over my finances, career, home, or self-respect. There was no dramatic embrace and no perfect reconciliation. There was only truth. For years, I believed love meant anticipating every crisis, paying every bill before anyone noticed, absorbing every insult, and protecting everyone from consequences. What I learned was that constant rescue does not always create gratitude. Sometimes it creates entitlement. When one person becomes the emergency fund, manager, emotional shield, and silent problem solver for an entire family, everyone else can avoid growing. Walking away may appear cruel to people who benefited from your exhaustion. Boundaries may look like revenge to people who considered your obedience a family tradition. But refusing exploitation is not cruelty. Allowing adults to face their choices is not abandonment. I helped Chloe because she accepted responsibility. I rebuilt trust with my mother because she changed her behavior. I remained open to Mason because he eventually admitted what he had done. I kept my distance from my father because his accountability remained incomplete. Equal love does not require equal access. My father once shouted that I had never given the family anything. 2 months after I stopped giving, tuition went unpaid, insurance lapsed, suppliers froze accounts, debts surfaced, and the company began collapsing. Their shock was not evidence that I had taken revenge. It was proof that my invisible labor had been holding up a structure no one else wanted to maintain. They lost the company, the home, their reputation, and the comforting lie that my contributions did not matter. I lost something too. The belief that I had to earn love by making myself useful every minute of every day. That was one loss I welcomed. Respect and responsibility are the foundation of a real family. Without them, love becomes a word people use when they want access to your time, money, or forgiveness. Do not wait until someone leaves to calculate what they contributed. And when they finally step away after years of being used, do not call their freedom betrayal. Ask what made freedom feel safer than home. Had you been in my position, would you have helped under strict conditions or walked away permanently? Share your answer in the comments, because sometimes forgiveness can exist without surrender.
We appreciate you staying with us through the story. This video is completely fictional and created only for educational, entertainment, and reflection. We hope it reminds you that one day, the person who made you feel powerless may become the reason you finally discovered your strength. Not because they deserved credit, but because you choose to rise instead of remain broken.